Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Kengan Omega Chapter 137. It's only been about an hour since I've recorded the reaction, which has not happened for a while. Which should go to show I have many thoughts, many feelings about this chapter and this fight. I have not actually left my room since the video uploaded. I've just kind of been sitting here watching the comments and discussing with people in the Discord to try and come up with some kind of coherent opinion so that I can do a decent review. So here we are now. Now I'm probably not going to have a time to do a clever plug for the Patreon, so I'm just going to do the shoutouts right now, get it out of the way at the beginning. So, special thanks to Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Strash23, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, Chuck's Feed and Seed, and Jakester EZ. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it, and if you too want to get a shout out at some point during videos, or access to reviews for Solo Leveling and The Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe how I feel. We got a really good chapter last week. I literally said that the chapter saved the fight, and it did save it from the issue that it had up until that point, the major one for me. And then we got this chapter, which... how do I think the best way to describe how this chapter and this fight on the whole made me feel is that it didn't really make me feel much at all. I was very anxious, I was very excited for, last chapter, because last chapter was really good. But with this chapter, for the most part, once we really got into things, and then it was clear what was happening, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess. So, I'm gonna try and be as fair as possible with this. I'm gonna start off with the positives for this fight, because there are some. I feel like two major ones is that the art on the whole was pretty good. I mean, Kengan art is pretty good on the whole. I don't think this was as good as some of the art we got in the last few fights in Ashura, but it was still pretty solid in terms of Omega art. And the choreography was really good. Choreography, the technicality of the fight was very solid. It was very good. Probably the best technical elements of any of the fights in this tournament, at the very least. So I guess from just a pure choreography perspective, this was probably the best one in the tournament. It has a few contenders. So the fight, with nothing else taken into consideration, the narrative, shit like that, pretty good. Pretty good. But then we have to take, the other important part of any story into consideration, which is the story. I feel like the biggest flaws in this fight, the biggest parts of its downfall, were the hype. The hype leading up to this fight was absolutely fucking ridiculous. Lolong was hyped up since the end of the first round as being stupidly strong, as being the strongest guy on the Purgatory team. We literally introduce him with Nicholas calling him king. And then the entirety of the tournament is him watching everything and giving his analysis, showing that he's a very knowledgeable and experienced fighter. Everyone fears or respects him. He actively commands various other members of Team Purgatory who are either hyped up as being strong or who we saw were strong. We got him stopping Nicholas versus Okoye. And then we got the last bits of hype going right into this fight starting. Nitoku saying that he may be stronger than Agito, and then him having a 422 win and 0 loss record in Purgatory, and then him having fought Kuroki to a draw like 20 years ago or something. Just fucking absurd. Like, Jesus Christ, was the hype for Lolong ridiculous. So, as you would imagine, when you hype up a character as much as you did Lolong, the expectations for him are gonna be through the fucking roof. You can't criticize people for having too high of expectations for Lolong, because read the tournament. Read the tournament and look at how Lolong was getting hyped up for the last, like, I don't know, 75 chapters or something? It was big hype. Actually, was it chapter... I don't actually remember the chapter where we got Lolong's kind of introduction. Like, when Nicholas was like, hey, who do you think's gonna win, King? So then he gets his fight. He finally goes up, he fights, and he doesn't really do much that's impressive. Like, the fact that he's fighting Oma, and we know how powerful Oma is. In fact, we didn't actually know how powerful Oma would be now. Because this is a healthy Oma after a 2-year time skip in which he was training with the clan of the most powerful assassins in the world, and one of the other strongest characters in the series. So we knew Oma's very powerful, and the fact that Lolong was able to have a fight with Oma for a really long time, I mean, in terms of chapter count, I think this is the longest fight in Kengan, is impressive. But when you look at what Lolong did, without really considering like how powerful Oma is compared to other characters, you know, his overall ranking among the Kenganverse, it feels like he didn't really do much that was impressive. He did a bunch of basic stuff, but none of it was done in such a way where it's like, holy shit, Lolong is so powerful. Like, go back and read the Kuroki fights. Because Lolong was hyped up as being an equal to Kuroki. We got plenty of that, oh my god, he's literally Kuroki shit. And none of his feats really felt like they had an impact the same way that Kuroki's did. Because what Kuroki did was we had him countering a bunch of really powerful techniques from other characters, and for the most part, Lolong wasn't really doing that. Like, he was getting hit with Nico style and Kure clan techniques, and then just not really anything happened. And then he got knocked out by a Flashing Steel Blast, which is not even Oma's most powerful offensive technique, which is not a good look. I think the fight could have had the same conclusion, but if Lolong got knocked out by like a Demon's Bane, it would have felt better. It would have been more like, oh yeah, it took a Demon's Bane to knock out Lolong. Instead it was just like, oh, this is essentially one of Oma's normal, really strong punches. It's underwhelming. Lolong did not live up to the hype. He disappointed. No, Lolong's not a jobber. He's not a fucking jobber unless you want to make the argument that all of the hype for him throughout this entire tournament was just so that he could lose to Oma and make Oma look stronger. But the thing is, Lolong didn't really do anything that felt that impressive, so as a result, it didn't make Oma feel that strong in comparison to him. Do you get what I mean? Lolong isn't a jobber because it didn't feel like he was that powerful. I don't know if Lolong is stronger than Faye, but Faye felt stronger than Lolong. Do you understand what I mean? When Faye did shit, it felt more impactful, it felt more powerful than basically anything Lolong did. And that's an issue because of how powerful Lolong was hyped up to be. So that's really not great. That's not fantastic. So at the end of the day, we got a very hyped up fight with a very hyped up character at the end of a very hyped up tournament, And the character was kind of underwhelming, the fight was kind of underwhelming, and it was pretty reflective of the tournament, which, on the whole, was pretty underwhelming considering how much it was hyped up. Not great. Not fantastic. I understand, and this is made abundantly clear through a lot of stuff that's happened ever since, like, the Lu Tian fight, that this tournament is intended to set up future arcs, a worm arc, I don't know, maybe we're gonna go to China or something. But I don't like the way that this tournament was built up to as being extremely important in and of itself, only for it to then basically exist to set up another future arc. And that was essentially the entire purpose of the tournament, was just, we spent like 50 chapters at the start of Omega hyping up and setting up this tournament to then spend 80 chapters, more than a year and a half, on an arc that was just here to set up and hype up another future arc. If we get into this worm arc, or whatever it's going to be, and I get more comments and replies from people saying, well, actually, you see, this is actually just set up for another future arc, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go insane. So, I'm generally not too pleased. If you were here rooting for Oma, which, I mean, yeah, Oma's the old MC, he's our guy, then I imagine you're quite satisfied. I don't know, like, I haven't been on Reddit yet. I understand some of the people on the subreddit are kind of upset. I don't know, how much of the subreddit was rooting for Oma or whatever. If even if they were fighting for Oma, they still found his victory to be kind of underwhelming. But this was just not it. This was not hitting it. It fell flat for me. It didn't make me feel what it should have. Waka versus Faye was a way more impactful and exciting fight than this. That should have been the last fight of the tournament. If we just swapped these two around, I would maybe have a better final impression of the tournament. Maybe I should go back and reread the tournament. That's probably a good idea. I know some people like Play Free plan on doing that. But this is not a great lasting impression to leave. Like, you've given me dessert after I finished the main course meal that was Waka versus Faye, and the dessert kinda was not great. I don't even know if I would go so far as to say it was good. And, once again, if the fight was not hyped up in the story as much as it was, I would not feel as disappointed as I do. But the fight needed to be way better than it was, and it wasn't. And as a result, it feels a lot worse than it probably actually is. But I'm not happy with this. I'm not particularly pleased with it. I'm kind of disappointed. I think that's the overall feeling that I got from this. I got to the end of the chapter, I'm like, oh, that was it? That was our finale for the tournament? Underwhelming. Very unfortunate. Now, hopefully, there is still a ray of hope. And this is the hallways of the Purgatory Arena. What's going on with Tiger Nico? What's going on with Eddie and Ryan? What's going on with Joji and Kureishi? That can still be good. Hopefully, that's the real dessert. We just had the main dish of the main course was kind of bland. But maybe dessert is good. Maybe that's the real dessert. I don't know. Hopefully, because, I imagine those fights could be really cool, but then again, the fight between Eddie and Ryan has been going on since the last round, so we're probably gonna see that it was off-screen, which is not great, and I don't know who would win that. If Eddie got off-screen, we're gonna have a big fucking problem. We're gonna have a massive problem here. But we should still have Tiger Nico versus Joji and Kureishi to look forward to, and then we also have whatever the fuck Kiryu and Ryuki are doing. So there are still some things to be excited about, but basically the main event was just kind of which your main event should not be. So that's kind of I guess that's kind of how I feel on the whole about this fight, on this tournament. Now, the tournament still had fights that I really liked. I still think that Rahito versus Falcon, Liu versus Nitoku, Nicholas versus Okoye, Waka versus Faye, those are all still very good fights. I still very much enjoyed those fights. I think they're very good. But a lot of the rest of the tournament was just kind of okay, or very disappointing, and that's not great. I'm gonna well, now that the tournament's over, basically, I'll be able to do a few videos that I wanted to do. I at least wanted to rank the Purgatory fighters. I'll probably also rank the Kengan fighter. I guess I'll do a video for just doing both in one video. And then I plan on ranking the fights of the tournament, which was something I did way back when in the miscast episode we did on Kengan Omega. That was back... was that during or after Hayami versus Jordan? I think it was after the fight that we did it. So now I can basically do a completed, maybe tier list version of that. But, it would number it just makes doing the video easier. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for this week's review. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Kengan Omega chapter reactions and reviews every week. If you enjoyed discussing Kengan Omega with other people, and I'm sure you've got plenty to talk about this week, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.